Hey everybody, welcome to Get to Know Your Wedding Pro. My name is Reed with Best Made Videos. We are a wedding videography company based out of West Seattle, Washington, and I'm really excited to be today to be joined by my good friend Tasha Owen. She's a photographer. We've done some pretty extraordinary weddings together. I think we have a wedding on the books this year. If there are indeed weddings this year, I had actually had to pause Tasha before she was just giving great nuggets about everything, and I said, "Well, we're not even recording yet, so save your wisdom and make sure that we record this." So, why don't you, Tasha, introduce yourself and tell us just a little bit about who you are and what you do before we get into the conversation.
Hi, I'm Tasha Owen, and my business is Tasha Owen Photography, and I am a wedding photographer. I only do weddings. I'm not really for family portraits and stuff because I'm a wedding girl. Love them. I've been in photography professionally for 34 years, with the first 27 of it being involved in the fashion industry, catalogs, and things like that, and decided in 2007 to okay, let's do weddings. Never thought I would. Love them. That's all I do. Love them.
And you guys are so great. It's you and your husband, Tom. And I remember the first wedding we ever did was Ron and Ina back at Chambers Bay 3 or 4 years ago. I can't even remember how long it was ago now. And I will say if I haven't met a photographer before, there's always, just that meeting period, right? We're there and you're there. And just the joy and ease, I think that you guys came in, not only for me, I'm not even important at all, but especially for the bride and groom and kind of everybody else, right? I think it's so important, your demeanor and personality. What is it about weddings you love so much, and where does that joy come from?
I really want to embrace that I am in service that day. I am in service to this couple, and there is nothing more important to me than their well-being. At this point of the game, I kind of consider photography almost secondary. That you already saw my pictures. My chops better be up to par. I mean, that's just a given. Tom is an incredible photographer and support team, so I feel like it allows me to come in with, what do I really want to do? This is a joyful day. And I am a romantic at heart. Tom and I are married 40 years this month. I totally want this to be a wonderful day you remember, and with joy. And even like for the other vendors, again, we are in service, and it's so important that it is always that we are on the same team. And we only have one purpose. And so we all have to do our job. But I feel like there has to be a definite level of respect when you're working with other people, especially in some ways videographers. Photographers often take the lead without going, hey, did you get your shot? And so since we're there for them, your product is as important to me for the bride and groom as my product is. And I really feel that's how I want the day to go.
No, I absolutely agree. And even with the service stuff, we were talking off kind of before we were recording. I mean, this is just a time capsule where we are now, the coronavirus and people are kind of under quarantine, and it really is kind of, uncertain kind of where wedding season's going to be this year. And it's interesting to me when you talk about service and the client and everything. I've been reading, and I'm sure you have too, a lot of stuff online about, what is my right for cancellation, or what are we, what is the rule where how much money do I get to keep as a vendor if they cancel, or, there's a lot of, questions, and people are asking things. And, I tried to, kind of be proactive, and earlier this week, and kind of really emailed all the clients and, said, we're really in this together, right? You guys want to get married, and obviously we need money to survive and live. And we need to really, more than anything else right now, be in communication of each other. Because like you said, it's not just, the photos or the video or the flowers or the food or whatever other service, the vendor is giving. It's that communication and service the whole way through, right? And it's more now than ever. I think we need to really be of in service, to our clients, the whole way around. And that involves kind of if we have to reschedule or plans change or venues move, or like you said, you have a smaller wedding coming up that they're, kind of crossing their fingers. I mean, it's a really uncertain time, but I think that it's really highlights the other aspects of our job that aren't just taking photos or video, right?
Oh, it's so important. And, I was asked by a young girl when I was in St. Louis about would I come to St. Louis and shoot her wedding, and I'm like, I'm not doing destination weddings anymore. And this was back in March. And I said, well, what do you think you should be looking for when you look for your photographers and videographers? She goes, oh, their pictures. And I said, well, yeah, but kind of not really. The most important thing is who we are and what we can do. And because I'm going to hope in our meeting that you got the drift, that through this kind of thing that we're going through with the coronavirus, that I'm going to be the kind of person that is reaching out for what can I do for you too. I was very proactive with my brides and grooms, and it had less to do with about money than it had to do with, I know y'all are scared, and it's a bummer that right now that you're having to plan this amazing event that should be joyful. You're having to plan it around this, and it's taken a little bit of joy out of it for you. And so my email said, call me. I will talk wedding plans to the cows come home. You want to call and discuss your shoes and your dress, you bring it on. That is what I'm here for. I want you to still retain the joy. A couple of my clients, they're seeing their honeymoons all canceled. They were going to go to Italy and stuff. And I feel like I was able to remind them, I got that, but in the end, what you get is you're married. You get this wonderful union. And of course, then I let them know cancellation stuff, how I'm handling it. It may be different than everybody else, but I've switched my policy for at least the next 2 months. Pay me on the day of the wedding. Kind of like if I don't have it in my bank account, I haven't spent it, I don't think it's mine. And the fact of the matter is they may not end up having it. So as you and I both know, this is a goodwill industry in many ways. And so I really embrace that goodwill is going to come around. My deposit, I'll put to it further down the line. And if it doesn't work out that we can't do it, well, come and have a session with me for an hour in Tacoma. But I agree. And yeah, we all need the money and stuff. But right now, I don't want to get somebody's payment in 2 weeks and then have them cancel. And it's like, I just, not how I'm going to do my business plan at the moment.
No, and it's interesting because you really are, I think we all kind of operate our businesses, different ways, and people have different, deposits and all these different things. And you're really finding out like how people do manage money, and do people, I've talked with people that have said, if you're booking weddings, whether it's 25% down or 50% down, like, you should really hold that money in a separate account.
Absolutely.
It's not yours because I think now we're finding, a lot of people that have, I only take 25% down, but a lot of people that do take 50% down and have spent a lot of that money or don't have that money now are really freaking out. Like, well, man, if I got to refund 20 weddings, like, I'm going to go totally under. And it's like,
correct.
It shouldn't take a pandemic to make people have to be cognizant of all these things, but sometimes you do, because I think people just think, man, I just booked $8,000 wedding and I got $4,000 and whatever, and it's like,
yep.
Until that's going, it's not really yours.
And that is completely how it is. And so coming out of this, I feel like from the industry standard, what you're discussing is going to have an impact. It will start changing that. I feel like in some ways it's going to cull out the industry. I think that there's a good chance the people that we saw doing this as a part-time supplement, extra money, it's going to be too stressful. They're going to probably find themselves not going to do that. So I feel like what's going to be left in terms of the clients, they're going to be left with the cream of the crop. And I really feel strongly about that. we lived through 9/11. Tom and I were both in advertising photography, and the bottom dropped out. I mean, overnight, we saw friends who did $30,000 a month in billing have no work, none. And so we saw what occurred after that in the ad world after something like this occurred. So prices adapted, how clients worked with you. So, and that will happen here too. And I don't see that as a bad thing, Reed.
No, and like you were saying about having, reaching out and telling your clients, call me if you have anything. I've talked on the podcast before about how I do think we're in such a unique industry, where it is a service industry where, people are paying. But we've booked last minute weddings. I've had grooms text me at 10 o'clock at night trying to figure out, what are we doing here? I'm sure you've had, calls and stuff. And I'm like, in no other world, like you would never text your plumber, at 11
No, you would not.
And be
You're
like,
right. You're right.
I was just kind of worried about this, or what do you think? And especially, video, we're a little more, I mean, I like to be hands-on, but in general, we're a little more hands-off, Photographers, I do think you're right there with the planners, where if you got, a bride or groom that's got a question, they're asking you, right?
Absolutely.
And so it's just highlighting that even more now, kind of who is, really in it, I guess, like you said, not just for the quick money, but is really in it for the love of, the clients and the weddings and kind of everything else.
Yep, for the heart of it. And I just, I do feel that's more than ever. So, and the response back from my clients was sweet, wonderful. It also allowed me to take the temperature of the industry a little bit and having, gone with it. And so it's just all on hold. I mean, personally, you constantly are going, today we're here where we are. That's all we can focus on. I cannot be projecting, am I going to lose all of June? And it takes a certain amount of discipline to get yourself back to today, we're good. And so it is a challenge. And but we'll all get through. We'll get through.
What I have found interesting is, all this now, and people are shut inside and, have all this time and everything. And believe me, I understand that, there's married vendors that have kids and they're dealing with, homeschooling and all this other stuff. But you're the first one that's taken me up on this. Hey, if anyone's got extra time right now to really try to do anything to improve, do anything
Absolutely.
to build, and I've for years have tried to do get my drone license, and we just usually hire people out because it's they're insured and licensed and everything. But I said, well, okay, let me try to get on that, and really people are really up in the blogs or doing this. But it's interesting how, because I've posted a bunch of times now since last week, if anyone's got time, I know people have time, and not everyone is taking it up on that. And that is interesting too, just to see who is trying to use the time to self-reflect and build, maybe update the website, or
absolutely,
I needed to do these blogs for the last year or whatever. So it is interesting that way too.
No. And I've contacted not only my couples, but vendors. Just reaching out to other vendors going, wow, how are you guys doing? Vendors that maybe I haven't seen for a while, the people like Kiani, just wanted to say, hang in there. If there's anything I can ever do. I have a wedding planner who we're starting, who I said, call me anytime. It's been wonderful getting to know her. She's called me 4 times going, I'm just kind of freaking out. And I said, okay, you can call me and freak out. I'm okay with that. Let's talk it back down to here's where we are. I mean, because I got Tom who does that for me. So it's and as an industry, we are often isolated anyway. You are doing post, very solitary. When I photograph a wedding with 30 hours at the computer on doing post, again, very solitary. It is not unusual for me I could go 4 days and never leave my house, which doesn't make me unhappy because I happen to love the area I live and I can go outside. But we're in a very solitary industry. So it has been, in some ways, it's been really cool to hear from other people in the industry and reach out and say, my God, it's really nice to talk with you. I mean, I've tried joining organizations and it hasn't been the same. And it's been a weird network, you know. It hasn't been necessarily a real connecting kind of networking. So this is kind of proving to be a different opportunity, Reed.
No, it's interesting, you know, because Dorothy's my wife's a teacher, and so she, you know, they sent them home last Thursday. I can't even remember now, you know, through the end of April, and she's like going stir crazy. And I'm with you, like I'm kind of used to being here, and I got the treadmill, and I got my computer, and
yes,
yep,
we're used to it. That's kind of, it is interesting. This keeping us contained kind of isn't that much of a deal.
Yeah.
But, and I am going to be sewing face masks. I sew. I'm a quilter. I do contemporary art quilting when I'm not doing photography. And the hospitals have put out to the sewing community. They have patterns. And Providence Hospital is actually going to provide the fabric and the box of, you know, all the stuff you need to make them. So it's really been interesting watching the sewing community come together and go, oh yeah, we can do this. We can help provide the face masks that they can't get into production. So I'll start doing that next week. And so that makes me feel good, and I get to produce something.
No, I think that's great. I was curious about that because I've seen people post and so they give you a pattern or whatever. I mean, I was
they
just
do, and it's actually approved by the CDC, and the Providence Hospital is providing the fabric, so they'll give you the actual fabric that most face masks are made out of. One of the other sites will let you use your own fabric from the house, which is absolutely better than nothing, is what they're getting down to, Reed, because they're in such dire need of it. So it's a way to make myself productive and try to help a little bit, you know, and to look around our community. And I think it's going to make us all better vendors and better people in service. And I did kind of wonder, I must admit, so in terms of photographing during a virus, my client's doing it. It's a small wedding on April 25th. And we were talking and they said, well, what if they give us the okay? And I said, well, we can do that, I guess, but what about the 6 foot? I said, that could make for some weird formals. And we started laughing. I said, because like, do I put grandma over 2 feet that way? And so we kind of chuckled and laughed about it, you know, and so everybody kept their humor. But that is an interesting thing. Somebody wanted to do an engagement session. And I said, you know, as long as I can shoot with a longer lens, and stay further away from them, but I still need to get closer. 6 feet's fine, but you know what it's like. You can't shoot everything back from a wall and expect to get the same vibe. Yeah, so since this is an energy game.
No, and I think, you know, we kind of talked already, you know, you've been doing this a long time and you've gone through, like you said, 9/11 and 2008 and everything else. I mean, are there just lessons that you've learned or advice that you have just having, you know, I mean, a lot of the people we have on the podcast, you know, 5 years, 7 years, you know, but for you to have gone through kind of these key moments, in time and obviously still, you know, surviving through it. What advice do you have for other vendors?
Flexibility and realizing that the old models may not still be true when you go forward. Absolutely. You're just going to have a lot of faith. I mean, during 9/11, we had to stop shooting. I sewed draperies and Tom did remodeling. And then slowly it starts trickling back. So I believe what's going to go forward, as there are definitely, I can't imagine people not doing weddings. So I think they're going to be looking, I don't think it's always going to get down to price as we go forward. I feel like it's always going to be a little bit about what more do you bring to the table? I feel like that's what's going to occur. So that's where you said people who are doing it for extra cash or the heart. I think that's what's really gonna change, and that's what I saw after 2008, as I was sensitive to parents whose 401ks were wiped out. So sometimes, it'd be like, talk to me about the wedding. Let's talk. Let's see what I can do. If I need to adjust the price, well, 1 hour less of my budget, will that make a difference? So how about if we do this? I can charge an hour less. You readjust how much time you think you need for preparation photos. Let's all work. Let's all work together. I feel like that's what always happens after we come out of this. And I'm going to hope, too, for the couples. It's going to be that yin and yang for both of us. They're not going to just want the farm and expect you to take it. I feel like we're going to come at this with, I'm willing to put some skin in the game. You are going to be, do the same thing.
Yeah, because I talked with some, vendors and stuff about, just because, like I said, you saw just this explosion of different, people charging, fees or not fees or cancellation or not. And I said, I have to think that people are just going to talk like adults here and just talk like, this is not in anybody's world, nobody is at fault, here between us. And so it's, we need to just figure out what's going on here. And, I've seen a lot of vendors, and I always kind of am just curious about that too, where I try to be pretty chatty with my couples and, online or whatever, and just kind of do whatever. And then I do see, I saw a lot of photographers and stuff that had a lot of cancellations. I kind of wonder, like, well, did you have that same dialogue going? I don't know. I'm not in anyone else's shoes, but I got to imagine that the people that are a little closer to their vendors, maybe they're a little more communicative and having that discussion versus like, oh, well, this is just someone that I hired to do something. And okay, well, we just got to cancel that now, because like you said, there's no skin in the game there. Right.
And, at first, Tom and I were talking, he said, well, by contacting everybody, do you think you're going to encourage them to cancel because you're being, I said, I don't see it that way. In fact, I see it the opposite way. I feel like I took away the fear, the relief in their writing, if you could have seen it as they got back to me, was so precious. And they're not going to take me into consideration necessarily, whether they do or don't, but they're sure going to pass on goodwill for me as it goes forward if I can't do the wedding. You know what I mean? So, because I had one wedding planner call me and she said, well, I saw what you wrote to everybody, and are you sure you want to do it that way? Because I talked to somebody else in the industry who's like, no way, they're getting all of their money up front. And after I talked to her, and I was like, I personally can't do it any other way. And I'm not a wealthy person. This is not like I'm not concerned about the mortgage payment. And so, but it's who I want to be in the face of it, Reed.
Yeah, no, I think that's the word. There's a lot of different ways to handle it, but I do think that, well, if you're going to get married next week, you got to have it paid by then, even if we're pushing the wedding 9 months. Right. It gets into a really sticky situation there. And I don't think that will harbor good feelings of any kind.
Well, and her point was, so what if they say they're going to postpone and then they don't do the wedding in November? And I'm like, if they don't, they don't. And what makes that different than any other cancellation? And then I try to rebook it. I can't make them pay for a whole wedding right now that they're going to maybe do in November. I could. I'm just not going to, Reed. It's just not how I'm going to work it.
No, we had the same thing. I had sent out a contract, kind of last minute for a May, and it was like literally right before all this. I think it was the weekend before. Right before kind of all this, and the groom calls me up and he's like, "Hey, I saw you sent the contract," and he's like, we just kind of got to wait right now. And I said, dude, I mean, you need to wait. I said, if you don't book me, I'm no worse off than I am right now. I'm in the same spot, but if you book me and then you cancel or whatever, then you're going to feel bad or whatever. I said, just hold on. I said, it's fine. I'm no worse off if I don't, like you said, it's no different than any other cancellation if you're no worse off. Right. And it's especially where if you're not taking the money yet, you're like, well, then that'd be awesome if they're ended up able to have their wedding, and that would be great. And if they don't, then I'm in the exact same situation I was in before.
Well, what I think, though, personally is interesting for me. So 3 weeks ago, I have a certain number of weddings I like to book a year, okay, Reed? And so I'm always watching my numbers, living into it, keeping track of how many weddings that I have booked at this time last year. I just like to kind of follow the curve and keep track of all my data. So I'm like 3 weeks ago, just like, oh my God, I'm like 5 behind where I need to be. What am I doing wrong? Have I done something stupid? Have I said something stupid? Is my marketing program not right? And it's really weird. Knowing I might see May and June wiped out, I'm like not in that same sick to my stomach worried, because it's like, this is nothing I can do anything about. So I know that I didn't do something wrong, since I'm always trying to think, what did I not do right? So that's an interesting feeling.
No, I'm in the exact same way. You want to hit that number every year. And now I'm like, you're just able to, it's like when they, it's like when they look at like the World Series or whatever in the year that the baseball had the strike. You're like, well, that year just doesn't, I don't know. It's just that there's an asterisk there and you just can't hold yourself up. Yeah.
Yep. It's indeed the truth of it. So, the pressure of how to book 5 more weddings this year, that's kind of off. I'm just now, I'll be happy to keep the 25 if I can, what I can. So
yeah, just be happy to keep the roof over our heads is what will be. That'll be good.
Yeah.
So to talk about just you, your background as a photographer, you said you were in fashion and everything. What do you look for? What is your voice as an artist? What do you like to focus on and look at when you're creating your art?
So I kind of like every year to take a look at the work and to feel where I need to move it forward. And where I take my cues are so often from the clientele that I seem to draw toward me. I'm going to draw the clientele most likely that wants to make sure that I catch those wonderful, spontaneous moments that we're creating those, not the candid where they don't know, but the candids that happen within the formals. I can indeed do a real high-end posy kind of thing like that. Not a problem. Most likely not, though, where most of my clients want to get. This year, I have some definite vibes on what I want to do lighting-wise. One of the things that frustrates me in wedding photography is lack of time. Very candidly, I'm not able to use all my skill set that I have been able to acquire over 35 years because it's not a lot. We don't have the time. If I had my way, right now, what I would do if I had my way, I would set up portrait background, and when they're done getting married, I would put them on that portrait background right then and there to get the energy of that first married stuff. I'd make sure it was that beautiful side portrait lighting, right? Well, that's never going to happen. Trying to stop their walking down or their hugs and kisses at the end and go, come on, step into this background. Let's get that on a portrait background. I don't know if it goes to smaller weddings. Maybe I can do something like that because I have a lot of training in how to handle lighting. And I would love to bring to the table some of that wonderful Rembrandt lighting, things like that on an old school portrait background. The timing logistics make that difficult, but I'll come up with a way. This season, there's going to be a season, and I've got some ideas for some lighting stuff. And Tom is so skilled at interpreting what my brain is seeing lighting wise, and he can just create it without it taking much time. So I can come up with some ideas that'll work for 2 people, maybe not the whole wedding party that I could do vibe with, but that's where I would like to head it toward. I would love to push my work toward that fabulous energy of all the laughing and that candidness, but with some really killer light.
What's your background? Did you study photography? How did you kind of get involved in this whole world to begin with?
Seriously, since the time I've been 12. I started shooting videos or film with the Super 8 camera that my father had. And I would literally beg for black and white film from my dad. And we don't even have any of the footage because we couldn't afford to have the little cartridges processed. So then I got to high school, and it was incredible. I had two men that were instrumental in teaching me in the photography programs. They let me go. They just were like, go shoot what you want. And teachers are amazing creatures to me. They are the reason I do what I do today. If it wasn't for these two men who took me under their wing at a really troubled time in my life in high school, I wouldn't be here. And they would let us go on field trips. And how he taught us, Reed, he would give me a camera with very little technical information. He'd let me shoot until my vision outgrew where I was, and then he'd give me one more piece of the pie. And so I took that. And when I graduated from high school, I had meant to go to a total different kind of program until I met Tom. And then we both went to a VOTEC program, an associate arts degree, which I despised the school. I hated going to school. I hated their assignments, but I loved the extra credit. And I remember one time I had this extra credit assignment, and I had told the teacher, I'm not going to do it the way you suggested. I'm going to do it this way. And on my paper, he wrote, I guess you told me so, A+. So I thrived in getting to do it. And then we got out of school, and we're really fortunate. We went to work for a large catalog house in Texas. And from Texas, then we opened up studios down in LA. And that would have been 34 years ago, and it was all advertising. So I'm used to shooting in large format, 4x5, 8x10s. And so back then, to be honest, I was one of the very few women in Los Angeles in advertising photography. So I learned how to build stuff. You could build backgrounds and how you build sets. And so it's and work with art directors and work with creative directors and the account exec, and then you got the client. So all of that come forward. How that applies to the wedding industry is I know how to work with a team. And that's what I hope goes forward when I'm working with other vendors and videographers. And that skill set, it's like, I call weddings organized chaos. And unless you've shot on a fashion shoot and you're following a layout, etc., the creative freedom that I am allowed on a wedding still blows my mind away. It amazes me. And a client will go, Tasha, can we do this? And I'm like, here's a clue. If there's time and the light is good, I work for you today. So the answer is yes. You know, when a mother taps me on the shoulder and says, do you mind shooting my brothers and sisters with me? It's like, I'm here for that. This is what you do with me. And it always surprises me when think they're interrupting me. So the creative freedom of our industry just is fabulous. I don't know if you find that, but it is for me.
No, yeah, I do. I think obviously it depends on, the photographer and who you're working with. And, most are really good about collaboration. I mean, obviously there are some that aren't as collaborative, but I think, the longer you do it and realizing, you can ask him to do something, or especially like if the guy's like, hey, do you think we could go do this? And you're like, absolutely. Because usually it's so much, the bride or whoever kind of, dictating that being able to give everyone that's kind of involved, if they have their voice and being able to do it, it's cool for me to kind of, make sure then that makes it in the video. If the guy wanted to go lean against this fence somewhere and do something, that definitely has to make sure it gets in there then. Because, I just want, and I tell my couples, and I'm sure you feel the same way with your photos, I want it to be a representation of their day, right?
Absolutely.
It's not necessarily, it's not, and I tell them, I said, it's not necessarily like my interpretation of your day. I want to capture what your day is to you guys.
Absolutely. We're their eyes. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're their eyes.
So you said you met Tom when you were in school?
I met Tom when Tom was in high school, and I was working at a hospital. I'm 3 years older. And so he was a senior in high school. And I was still playing with cameras even then, and Tom got very involved. He was going to be an auto mechanic. So he stopped auto mechanic school, even though right now he is working on a fabulous 1962 T-Bird that is going to make an incredible wedding prop when the thing gets done. So yeah, but met Tom 43 years ago.
And so who made the first move?
Oh my God, I'm sure it was me. Tom is too polite. And actually, I remember, I think it was my 20th birthday, and I told him, you owe me a birthday kiss. And I'm pretty sure that the rest is history.
Is it, you said that Tom is really good about interpreting, your vision and, with some technical skills. Is it ever troublesome to work with your partner in close proximity?
It's really weird. We have worked together, Reed, ever since we met. So he gives me such a wide latitude. When we worked in LA, we shot different things. I was very focused on the fashion part of it. He was more focused on the product. So, but in weddings, he's really great. He knows that that I've got a clear vision. He's good about following the vision. He's good about, stepping up when I need him to. Every now and then I'll look at him and he'll come over and stand next to me at a wedding, and I'll go, really? Really? I think you should go take the cake, go photograph the cake right now. Let's give each other just a little tiny space. And and we learn to do that with a smile on our face and go, really, honey? Really? No, but it is rare. It is more than anything. It's like, oh my God, he does an amazing dance around interpreting where I am and what I need. I mean, he knows that my focus is so intense during formals that I'll turn around and he's like, here's a water bottle right now. And so I could count on one hand the times I wanted to kill him. So, and probably vice versa.
That's funny. What was your guys' wedding like?
Oh my God. Okay. Probably about 375 people. Didn't know a lot of them. Back then, our parents, they were Catholic, Irish, and Germans, a bunch of them. So you had big weddings. We went through 7 kegs, which means it was successful. Our wedding photographer didn't show up. So I'm a wee bit sensitive about never missing a wedding. We were in photo school, and we were broke, and we're in Iowa, so we hired a student who had just graduated. So he goes to Colorado to ski, and he says he got stranded. We probably believe it was more hungover and having a great time. So a friend of ours who went to school with us, between all of us, we kind of took our wedding pictures. And then we got there for the reception, and they had the times wrong. So almost 400 people show up for a reception and nothing set up. So what did it teach me? It taught me and sometimes I'll tell brides when they're like, this wasn't right. And I'm like, you know what? I want you to take a deep breath back and let's focus. And I've held their hands, and it's like, let's take a focus right now on what is working. You can yell at that florist on Monday, but you know what? Right now, we're going to focus on this is an incredible day. And you're nervous, so your energy is going to be looking at what didn't go right. You've done the best you know how to do today. So that's what my wedding taught me, Reed. And that's what I'll never forget. I mean, I got the greatest guy in the world out of the day. So who cares that the reception was late? Who cares that my photographer didn't show? We worked it out.
That's funny. No, and as someone, we used to be, across the aisle from each other at the wedding show for years, and obviously working with Tom too. No, I mean, Tom's definitely a catch. So that's good that you guys.
Okay, my mother calls him a saint, if that gives you a clue.
No, but like you were saying with, putting everything into perspective during the day. I always remember, God, was it 3 years ago now? We had a wedding at Hidden Meadows. And it's just a great day, like really easy. Like we got there and they had all the detail stuff ready and we did all that. And then he showed up and then she showed up and just the easiest freaking day. And then the caterer was set up. They wanted it. So they wanted it served family style. And the caterer said, "Oh, well, we missed the memo on that. We don't have that right size bowl or whatever. We can do buffet or we can do plated, but we can't do family style. We can bring everything out. I understand if you want it to be, because some people think buffet, we want whatever." And she got in such a tizzy about it that she literally broke into hives all over her. And we had to wait to do all the family photos and all this other stuff because I thought, man, from anything to get, it's not like you don't have food. It's just you can't serve the food family style. It's crazy. But that was enough to really kind of throw off a wrench in the day. So like you said, yeah, taking into perspective of what is working and not what isn't working.
And that again is why you need to be careful. Who you choose as your vendors becomes really important. How are we going to respond to that? I've had wedding dresses tear. Since I sew, I'm handy. I always have a needle and stuff, but the bride, I can see the panic in her face. And it's like, we got this. It's okay. And a groomsman actually went and bought super glue so we could glue this chiffon back together. And it was fun when she wrote in her review, that's what she thanked me for. It wasn't the photos, Reed. It was that. And that's where, again, it's so important who we are. When these clients meet with us, can they trust that we're going to have their back? And we're going to sit there and, for a woman, it's probably easier. You guys can't really go hold the bride's hand. For me, it's easier because, and being older than all of them are, it's, they let me be that part of myself. And I really love that they trust me to do that, for me to put down my camera and say, let's just sit for a second. Okay. I promise, we're gonna focus right now on what's good. I want you to look at this day and look at the people around you who love you. Everything else is seriously icing on the cake.
No, it's funny. We just did. I'll do some video testimonials. Some of our couples, and especially right now, we're trying to do some just because people are sitting around. And she said the same thing that they said because it was a last minute. She was actually getting a job in China, and so they planned the wedding kind of somewhat. Not last minute, but 3 month kind of thing. And, they hired us and we say you would with the wedding, we do a phone call. Okay. We book and then the wedding day. And then, afterward she said, we've been really close online and especially once they get the video and they're happy and everything. But she said, we just so appreciate that friendship that we have now that I'm sure they never, you never think oh, okay, well the random guy I hired to shoot our wedding video is going to be not a best friend, but someone online that we can chat with and laugh about stuff with. And, it's cool to just have those, like you said, it's so much more than just what's coming out of the camera,
Absolutely. Absolutely. The crazy dogs. Do you hear them?
I know. Well, I've been lenient with the shushing today because it's stressful for everybody, dogs included. Our dog Rosie thinks she's died and gone to heaven because we're both here all day.
I have a Rosie.
Yeah.
What kind do you? What's your pup?
She's how old is she now? 8. Chowini. She's a Dachshund Chihuahua mix.
I bet she is in heaven that you're both there all the damn time.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, my Rosie's being very sassy, and she's a corgi. And spoiled. And then there's a second corgi called Thor. So yeah, they're pretty well in heaven, but Yeah, they're funny, and I'm kind of good to have them right now.
I'll tell you, Dorothy and I were saying the other night, because we'll kind of work and stuff. And then it's like, all right, like it's time to have a beer or whatever and sit downstairs. We try to, I said last night, I said, well, we have to wait till this time to drink. Cause if we didn't have any rules, then there would be no rules at all. And we would just be drinking all day.
All day.
But no, I said, isn't it so nice right now? Because we don't have kids, but I said, isn't it so nice that we're married and that, we have a dog? And I said, I couldn't, it'd be really tough sitting at home alone. If you didn't have anyone or a roommate or anything, it'd be really hard.
Well, I must admit, we're a little spoiled too, because our nephew lives with us and he's a chef. So I just had like a really great breakfast made for me. Can I just say that? And so he's now here full time too. So yeah, he kind of spoils us. So but besides the fact that I get to learn a lot, but today he made me a great breakfast. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah, this is like, we're on vacation.
Indeed. A little mini resort right here on my little area of heaven.
I want to ask you about the clients that you feel like you attract, and that you like to work with. I mean, all the weddings that we've had, both with me and then, my associates that have been with you, have just been really warm, just good people. I mean, people always ask me, do you have any bridezillas or whatever? And it's like, no, because, obviously I think you attract kind of what you give out.
Agree.
But talk about, who your ideal couple is, who you like to work with, what do you like to do? Do you get to know them, or, kind of that whole thing?
So my ideal couple is the couple, I guess I'm going to use them. I'd never met this couple. So my ideal couple, I mean, I have met them. I'm using them as an example. So they are my ideal couple. I've never met them. Been contacting, of course, via email. Ironically, this time it was the groom who was running everything because his wife was busy and he was in the Navy. And so I walk in, they are gregarious and fabulous. And instantly we respond. Their hearts are open. They're just playful. And they're so happy to be there that day. That's the couple I want. I want the couple that is there in absolute excitement about the fact that they're getting married that day. And it can be difficult, because it's like you got all that energy and they have all these people. And yet, if they'll trust me and I trust them, that's the couple I want. They're going to play. But even a couple that's shy, like I had a young man who was really shy. And even during the toast, the father said, well, we've known Don for 3 years. Now, he doesn't say much. And when we left, Don looked at me and goes, he said, you're kind of 85% therapist and the rest photographer, because he came out of his shell for me. He trusted me and he was playful and he let himself be willing to enjoy the day. I know he hated people looking at him. So that's my ideal couple. Trust that I will take care of you. I can sense when you are nervous. I know when somebody's bugging you. I can say, we're going to take a break. If you're in front of my lens, I'm pretty intuitive about what's going on with you. And so as long as most people who hire me, I feel like they hire me knowing I got their back. And that's what I'm looking for more than anything.
No, and I agree with what you're saying about, just the happiness to get married. And we've talked, I think, on the podcast, and I've talked with other people, it does seem like lately, just in the last couple of years, there is a lot of other pressures, to get married, and you got a lot of family stuff, and you got a lot of money stuff, and you got a lot of whatever, and your mom or whatever. And it is a lot of stress on the couple sometimes. And, it gets to be a lot. And we've had a lot of couples, just kind of tap out at that like 8 or 9 hour mark, okay, we're kind of really done with this whole thing, just get really tired. And, maybe this year we were talking about just changes in the industry through kind of all this stuff. And maybe, with how difficult it is, I guess, right now to get married, that people will be, kind of that joy will return, and maybe we won't worry as much about like, well, what does mom think I need to do, or what do we think we need to do versus just like, what do we want to do? You know what I mean? But maybe just where it has been like, we've all been taking, well, I can just get married. Like we've been taking this for granted for a while. And now where it is a little more challenging and with everything that's going on, maybe people, that would be my hope, just to be a little more, like you said, just happy to be there. Cause we just we just want joy.
And you know what? I find the word play really helps. When you go, all right, you guys ready to go play? And when they see it like that a lot of times, and play looks different to a lot of people. Play could just mean putting them in my van and we drive from point A to point B and they get 3 minutes to be alone. And they get out of the van and it's like, okay, and just, if I just let them walk and just talk to each other, that helps a lot. And again, then by the reception, I want to be pretty hands off. They got to be pretty tired. Period of and listening to me. And 9-hour day is pretty rare for me anymore. Reed, I know videographers often stay longer, but they pretty well are letting photography go. I'd say 8 hours means it was about a 250 person wedding. But if somebody's got under 150 weddings, I'm a 6.5, probably 7 hours is what they're looking at for me.
No, and I do think there's a good balance there. I mean, obviously we just try to kind of accommodate whatever they want, but I do think it's a lot. It's a lot for, we do this all the time and it's still a lot. And these people, I tell them, it's like, you've never done this before, right? I mean, you just don't have the stamina that a lot of people do for that.
Well, when they tell me, it's funny, on their thing, it'll say, we're looking for 10 hours of photography. And I think, you're not. Yeah. You're really not. You're not going to. One, preparation photography for me doesn't need to be longer than 30 minutes to an hour, or you're wasting your budget. It's like they're never going to pick those photos of every ounce of their makeup getting put on. It's just not going to happen. And since I really always, no matter what, I always try to keep their budget in mind. And when I give them my time, I'm giving them, here's what it looks like for me to be efficient. Anything else you want to give me, it's luxurious for me. But here's what I require to do the job really well. And I'm never going to tell you what you think you want to hear from me to get the job. I am always realistic about timing, Reed.
No, that's good. I think you need to be, and I think, like we said, just being really, especially nowadays, being really real and honest about what needs are, from everybody. I think it's going to be important.
I've done over 660 weddings. And so I'm pretty, in terms of timing, I have a pretty good sense of what's needed. No matter what the dynamic is that you're going to tell me, I can pretty well go, you know what? We can do that in 10 minutes, or we can't. The biggest thing where I have to educate them a lot of time are formals in their heads. And I'm like, okay, here's the deal. 2 people, 1 minute. Every time you start adding more now, we're going to add another 1 minute. You get to over 5, now we're 5 minutes of grouping. And that has really helped Reed in the putting together their photo list. I know that videographers don't have to deal with formals really, but formals are it's funny. It's a significant thing of what they want, but it's what they want to give the least amount of time to. And so I've got to be really clear in my communication about exactly how long does this take. So I deal with like a product photograph. I knew it took 30 minutes to photograph this product on this background. It's going to take an hour when we add 4 products now. So I kind of approach formals the same way.
No, I laughed this summer. I had a wedding with a different photographer, and it wasn't her fault either, but the couple had sent the list of formals, and it was a big wedding. So we were all on like every email. Everybody was on like every email, and they send this list, and bless their heart, she writes back and she's like, well, if the same kind of thing you're doing a little bit, right? Well, if we want to estimate, I can't remember
right.
What her math was. Well, if you're estimating this amount for this, and she's like, that's going to be about 2.5 hours of like.
Exactly. Well, and because like you said, they've never done it before. And that's what I sweetly always want to remind them of. You've never done it before. Of course you haven't. You shouldn't be expected to know this stuff. You should expect your vendors to know this stuff.
Absolutely. We're winding down on our time here a little bit. I really so appreciate you coming on.
You're
It's been so
welcome.
good to catch up. I was just going to share before we go. Every time I think about us, I think obviously about Ron and Ina's wedding, and how he's just the happiest guy the whole day. Older couple get married. He's like he was like in the FBI or something, or he
Right.
was a government employee, and just the happiest guy. He actually, a side note, does like drumming now, and I went and filmed like a whole video for him doing like drumming stuff, which was really kind of cool because I don't get to hang out with my couples a lot. Like, I don't get to do like engagement sessions or like any of that sort of stuff. But the wedding day, we're sitting there at Chambers Bay and we're doing the photos in the there's like the tall grass there by the turnaround.
Yeah, yes.
And she looks down at her dress and she's like, "Oh my God, there's a spider on my dress." And then Ron, just cool as a cucumber, was just like, and like knocks it away. And you see that in the video, you see the spider fly off. But she's like, "Oh, sorry, did I just really do that? Did that really just, because you just kind of have that like freak out. Oh, I hope no one, oh no, everyone heard that. Like absolutely everybody heard. Yeah.
And so they are so sweet. There's so many wonderful moments like that.
Well, and like I said, I think you get what you give, and where you just have that outgoingness, and I think you just, it's got to be fun, and especially doing the weddings. We could do every wedding together, because you just you get what you give, and I think you do attract a really good just warm-hearted client base. So I think
I hope so, and I'm not going to feel, it's funny, I've got a couple friends who believe this is the end of the wedding industry. No, it isn't. People are still going to get married. It may take a little while, but as a culture, as people, we are in need of celebrating the moments that matter in a life. We are people of community. So we may see smaller weddings for a while, but we will have weddings, and there will be celebrations, and there will be birthday parties and stuff. It's going to take a little while. There'll be a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction to all of this, but we still need the celebration of community.
No, I said the same thing. I sent out an email we had some clients that we're talking to, inquiries, whatever. And I said, obviously, like once we get past kind of all of this craziness, I said, I think this demonstrates more than anything why it's important to capture all this stuff, in photo and video. I mean, I think, like you said, people, are going to be so ready to see each other again and, and gather. But I do think it just highlights even more like how important it is to capture these moments, because who would have thought like, okay, we're going to be stuck inside for 4 months or whatever, like we're never going to see our families. So I think it is. I think you're right. I think it's going to hopefully just kind of curve up the other side and result in a lot more, joy and everything.
I'm going for that, Reed.
Well, you absolutely killed it today. Good job. I know you said you were a little nervous. You said, what'd you say? You said, I said, I cannot believe that anybody would even ever want to hear anything. What'd you say? I can't imagine what I would have to say was of real interest, but I will trust your skills to lead me down the path. Well, you succeeded. If people want to learn more about you, your photography, chat with you and Tom, where would you have them check out? Where would be the best places to go?
Go to Tasha Owen Photography.com. Oh, no, I'm wrong. Tom just said Tasha. It's TashaOwen.com.
TashaOwen.com.
Go see me and take a look, and then my information's there. You can text me, you can email me, you can phone me. You can show up front of my house and wave. If that works. We'll stay 6 feet apart, so yeah, whatever works.
Perfect. Well, thanks again. If you're like Tasha and you're interested in coming on the podcast, you can go to www.bestmadevideos.com/podcast guest. And, like I'm saying right now, if people have extra time on their hands, or even if you don't, it's a good way to, make time and share your story. And I think it's important to get a lot of voices and opinions anytime, but especially this time, I think is very good. So
thank you for having me, Reed.
Awesome. This has been another episode of Get to Know Your Wedding Pro. Check back next week for another wedding vendor interview. Thanks so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.